Hello everybody, Buddy Webb, Midland, Texas. Going to do a little video this morning coming off a Facebook post I think you'll find real interesting. I named this one Premeditated Murders, and basically here what I'm saying is that there's several degrees of murder. First degree, second degree. There's murder done in the heat of passion or whatever. There's involuntary manslaughter, but then there's premeditation. That's when you plan in advance. And that's what happened here because it was inside my home. Nobody accidentally breaks into a home, accidentally shoots the owner. You have to plan that one out in advance, right? And it's done during the commission of a felony. And you're going to see other acts of premeditation where they attempted to not get caught, but so I'm going to show you the evidence that I found. I think you're going to find this real interesting, answer a lot of questions for some people on how this happened, because this is an incredible story. I've said it many times. Back when I was shot, all I had was this crazy story: burglar alarms going off in the attic, somebody under my home shooting me, these police in my home that I couldn't get identified, and then I'm called crazy and all this, but that don't work no more. Now there's 50 other homeowners documented reporting people in the attic, proof I wasn't shot with my gun. That's what we're going to see in this video, and then multiple people documented saying tunnels, underground homes are here, along with supporting evidence from Google Maps. Obviously they are. And so here I'm going to do a short read here. I said premeditated murder. Most people have probably heard me say that I was ambushed and shot by somebody under my home with my phone lines cut and burglar alarms going off in the attic. This isn't a theory, but a proven fact. Although when I was first shot, I didn't know what had happened. The burglar alarms were going off and boom, I fell to the ground. I didn't see the shooter or the gun. I knew I was under a home invasion. That burglar alarms going off. It took a long time to figure out what happened and what I was shot with. There was a lot of things I didn't know back then that I do now, such as the multiple people documented saying that tunnels and underground homes are here, or Google Maps, they used to show a bunker in my backyard. That was recently deleted. In 2019, evidence was found placing police under my home that night, and it was those police that tampered with evidence and lied on the police reports. Okay, that's incredible itself. The ex-wife had already told me there was a trap door here, but she didn't tell me where it was at. I now know it was located under the cabinet in my utility room, as that is where I was shot from, but it wasn't there when I returned from the hospital. I'm going to show you pictures of that. They had covered it up, and I believe this happened in between the two police entries into my home. We were never supposed to find out about the first entry by the police, but they accidentally started the security camera in my bedroom. Okay. The pictures on that camera is what caused the secret police, since they were withholding the police report, and it took 6 years and a $2,000 reward to get them identified. During this time, they worked to try and terrorize me into selling my home, with death threats, repeated break-ins to my home, and people asking or ordering me to sell my home. One of those was a DHS agent. One proof meme that you'll see here is the nurse's notes from the ER, and I put it next to what Detective Rosie Rodriguez said on the police report. I was comparing the two. Nurse Creswell documented me saying that burglar alarms were going off over and over when I was shot. That's a home invasion. But Rosie said that I told her I was locking up for the night, knocked my gun over, and shot myself. See, notice the difference there? If it wasn't for this nurse, then it would have been my word against those police, and they were lying. You'll also see several proofs showing that I wasn't shot with my gun, and that is huge because it means that somebody under my home had shot me, and that's not an accident. It takes premeditation. I have a screenshot of Lisa Rogers telling me that I was shot with a .45 handgun, which is a lot different than me being shot from point-blank range with my 12-gauge shotgun, as the police have falsely claimed. I don't know how Lisa knows this, but I've suspected that one of her sons may have been here when it happened. The fact is, there wasn't enough physical room for me to be shot with this 4-foot-long gun, and if I had been shot with it, then it would have blown my foot off. There's a lot more evidence than that, though. The size of pellets removed from my foot were 2.5 sizes different than the size of pellets that were in my gun. I believe the police knew this, and they tried to get rid of the evidence that proved it, but they had overlooked a shotgun shell in my closet. The surgeon stated that he removed a large amount of plastic from the wound, and which would not have been there if I had shot myself with my shotgun. CSI Marty Barrett checked in 4 live shells from my gun, but he did not check in an empty shell. If I had shot myself with my gun, then an empty shell would have been in the gun, and he would have needed to remove it before he could get out the live shells. I made a point about this, so Matt Davis checked in empty shells at a much later time and then quit the police department. Based on the evidence, I believe I was shot with the Glazer safety slug from a .45 handgun. This gun fits the tight space requirements, and this ammunition is a plastic-tipped, pellet-filled bullet, which would make it appear that I'd shot myself with my shotgun. I'm going to show you that here in a minute. The size of pellets in it do match the size of pellets removed from my foot, and it explains why the surgeon said he removed a large amount of plastic from the wound. When I returned from the hospital, I found pry marks on the top inside door jamb of my bathroom, and this told me that a burglar was trapped in there when I was shot. But I didn't know that at the time. The person that shot me, who was below my utility room floor, was not in any danger whatsoever because I didn't know they were there. Keep that in mind, that they could have left out of the same tunnel they got here from. They chose to stay and try to murder me. Okay, no danger, no self-defense. This was not self-defense. Okay, and then the truth is that you can't claim self-defense when you break into a private home. Okay, because you caused it in the first place. Because it's a burglary of a habitation felony. Okay. This was cold-blooded, premeditated murder, and God saved my life. The person in the bathroom could have called the police and turned themselves in, but if they had done that, then they would go to prison, and it would expose the underground homes, tunnels, and many other crimes and murders connected with this house. Furthermore, they stole my cell phone and disconnected my home phone lines before shooting me. The reason I crawled out was because I had no communication, but you can bet they planned on me bleeding out and dying. I screamed for help after falling, and they listened to me scream while waiting for me to die. There's a picture of Detective Rosie Rodriguez leaned over my nightstand where my stolen cell phone was planted, and I found where she wrote on the police reports that I had told her my battery was dead on my phone, when the truth is I had a fully charged cordless phone and only had that because my cell phone had been stolen. She was excuse making after she had planted my stolen cell phone. I've posted about that many times. So why didn't they shoot me twice, right, if I'm crawling out? Because then they couldn't claim this was an accident. An accident added $500,000 to the life insurance, and the ex-wife had just taken them life insurance books and knew that. But the most important thing is this would be a death penalty case. They broke into a private home and tried to murder a person premeditated. I believe the doctors who we now know faked x-rays were working with the people that tried to murder me. Notice that the ER doctor said a through-and-through gunshot wound that appears to be from a shotgun. That interesting wording now that we know, that's interesting wording now that we know I was shot with a special bullet to make it appear that I'd been shot with a shotgun. Come to find out, the ER doctor was the brother-in-law of the ex-wife that I'd filed divorce on 5 days earlier. You may have also saw where I told Rosie Rodriguez, detective, that I had a voice recorder. It had recorded the burglar alarms going off before I was shot and proved that I was shot during a home invasion. Well, that was stolen too. Like the empty shotgun shells, I made a big deal about it, so they checked it in at a much later date. Okay. I transferred to Midland with hope and excitement, spent my life savings on the American dream, my home, not knowing it was rigged and they were using it to murder one homeowner after another. Based on the evidence, I believe we'll find out they killed the guy that lived here before me, and I suspect it was planned in advance too, with the help of these same police. These are dangerous criminals. You can't get more dangerous. So I'm going to go over the evidence that I was showing you, or I talked about in there. This is from a medical record from the emergency room, and this is what the emergency room doctor said right here. A right ankle exhibits a through-and-through gunshot wound, which appears to have been sustained by a shotgun blast. That's real interesting. Why wouldn't you just assume it was come from a shotgun, right? Because what makes it interesting is now we know I was shot with a special bullet to make it appear that I was shot with a shotgun, right? And keep in mind, this doctor right here turns out to be the brother-in-law of the ex-wife, and I just filed divorce on her 5 days earlier. A few weeks before this murder attempt, the ex-wife had told me with 100% sincerity, the secret is a group of doctors are killing people for profit. But she didn't tell me that her brother-in-law was a doctor. I wondered if he was one of the doctors. It does make sense. It's now proven that x-rays were faked on this night. Okay, and so I wanted to show you that piece of evidence put in here. This is the cabinet that that I was shot from. Okay, and here this picture was taken not long after I got out of the hospital by my home health care nurse, Melissa Gibbs. She was over here changing the wound vac bandages that day, and what we did was took pictures of the bottom of the cabinet and see, in front of this cabinet was the blood. That's where I fell, no doubt, absolutely 100%. I was shot in front of this cabinet. Okay, and I mean that's fact, and we absolutely know now I wasn't shot with my gun. So that tells us the shot came from under the cabinet. Okay, the ex-wife had already told me there's a trap door here. I didn't know where it was. Well, this cabinet here was missing the door, and they're missing the shelf, missing the kickboard. I put that on after I got out of the hospital. I mean, all these parts are gone off this weird cabinet, you know, with no explanation, because I bought the home and it's as is. That's how it was when I bought it. Nobody would ever suspect that it's hiding a tunnel, you know, that goes to $1 million underground home in the backyard. Nobody would suspect that, right? I mean, this was definitely the perfect murder. And then also pictures of my foot showing the entrance and exit ones. This is the entrance one on the front. That was important to know the direction of shot, because I was walking this way and that told me the shot came from the cabinet and it come in here and it exited here. Okay, so the gun was level. The gun was above ground level. They were right there waiting for me to walk by, and as soon as I walked by, they pulled the trigger. That's what happened. We know that because that's what the evidence shows. Okay. This backs up, shows the same room, and I want to show you. This is a little bitty 8x10 room, has a washer and dryer in it and water heater and and that cabinet. I was walking to the back door when I fell to the ground. So what happened? And the shot come from here, okay? And so I fell right there. It's showing there blood right there. There was also a Kansas City cap found underneath that cabinet. I believe was left after when they poured the concrete, covered it up, because I believe concrete was poured there and that was covered up when I was in the hospital between the two entries by the police, because the police come in on the night of the murder attempt, January 28th and 29th, that night, and then they come back 3 days later when Rosie had me sign a consent to search form. So they were here twice, but they withheld the police report from the first entry, and we wouldn't have never known about it, but they accidentally started that camera trying to disable it and caught themselves on camera covering up the murder attempt. And that's what caused the secret police, caused me to offer a reward, and had the 6 years of death threats and break-ins to my house, and people saying, you know, I'd sell that home if I was you. Okay. Here, I need to get back to the pictures. What I'm showing here is from the surgeon's report, where the surgeon stated there was a large amount of plastic and pellet debris in the wound. Well, if I was shot with a 12-gauge shotgun, that wouldn't be there, okay? But some people, you know, are excuse makers, grasping for straws, trying to cover up these premeditated, you know, murders or whatever. Oh, I know, there's a plastic wadding. That's why there's plastic. Well, the ER doctor said he removed the plastic wadding in the emergency room before surgery. That's why the bottom section's in there. So as I said, where did the plastic come from? If it did, you know, it didn't come from a 12-gauge shotgun. Well, I believe I was shot with this special bullet. It's a plastic tipped pellet filled bullet, okay, and number 6 shot. And that's important here in a minute, because the size of pellets removed from my foot match the size of pellets in the Glazer safety slug. They don't match the size of pellets that were in my shotgun. Okay, that was ballistic evidence. Here more on the police report, and this is Marty Barrett, the crime scene investigator. Y'all watch the TV show Crime Scene Investigator. They're the ones that are supposed to ensure the integrity of the evidence, and you know, and you know, I think it's pretty obvious that this CSI was dirty and he was tampering with evidence, as all these police were, okay, because they were covering up a premeditated murder attempt. They're really trying to cover up $1 million underground homes for some wealthy people, right? That's really what they're trying to cover up. Okay, but here he says he picked up my gun. You know, he says I proceeded to 3802 Fair Cycle processed the crime scene. I collected evidence from the scene that included a shotgun. But one thing I want to make a point there, he never said which was attached to a tripwire. See, the only person that said there was a tripwire was that dirty cop Rosie Rodriguez. She's the only one out of 11 police at my home mentions the tripwire. There is no tripwire in evidence, okay? The proof shows I wasn't even shot with my gun. She made that lie up, okay? The other thing is he checked in most of the evidence. He checked in 4 live shells. They were in the chamber of my gun. That was a pump shotgun, a Remington 12-gauge pump shotgun, fully loaded, so it had live shells inside the gun. So he checked in the live shells, but he didn't check in an empty shell. That was the point that I was making, that if I'd been shot with my shotgun, as the police falsely claimed, that empty shell was still in the gun. You would have to unload the empty shell before you could get these shells out. And the point is, I wasn't shot with my gun. Okay, I keep closing that up. And let me go back. Okay, here's the nurse's notes. This is real important because this is timestamp. I'm crawling out at 10:42, and this first one's 11:27. Okay, so it's less than an hour later. And then the patient stated, this is ER nurse Kiara Creswell, and she's writing this, but the detective doesn't know that, and because the detective has a whole nother story that she made up. She's a liar. That's all there is to it. She's a bold-faced liar. Should never have ever been a police officer. I got a feeling she lied on many cases, okay? But what we know is she lied on this one, Detective Rosie Rodriguez, okay? But the patient stated, my neighbors are breaking in my house. There are sirens going off, have tire wire around the cabinets and closet. There's a voice recorder recording what's happening. I have cameras. A neighbor built a tunnel. They're stealing my stuff. Alarms are going off. Tire wire in my doors to keep them out, okay? And so here, 12:03, okay? A few minutes later, I was talking on a white voice recorder in case something happens to me and saying what they were doing in my house. I have proof. Just go look. There's proof. Okay, so the nurse is documenting what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I'm under a home invasion. That's pretty easy to tell, right? I think we all can tell that, okay? And then she documents Detective Rodriguez as patient's necklace and stated she's going to give it to his brother. That was an odd comment, Does she know my brother, Detective Rodriguez, badge number 8769, has patient's belongings. She was documenting Rosie. Okay, here's what Rosie said on the police report, and she didn't know the nurse had wrote this. Oh, Buddy stated he was going to lock the door leading from the kitchen to the garage when his gun fell. It went off. Shotgun accidentally fired, shot his ankle. Buddy said his phone was not charged, so he went outside and screamed for help. Lie, 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 lie. Buddy wasn't locking up for the night and knocked my gun over. I didn't say that. I was under home invasion. Burglar alarms were going off over and over and over. I mean, and she did, like I said, thank God for that nurse, doing that documenting, because then it was going to be my word against their word. And you know what it is? It's not just Rosie Rodriguez. It's April Chandler. It's every one of them all together. One of them lies and they all swear to it. That's what happens. And, and here I'm the innocent crime victim, crippled crime victim. Okay. I think we saw that one. That one's where I shot Lisa Rogers, okay? And this was on a Facebook post. She says, you're not disabled with the 45, and I picked right up on that. A 45? You just said I was shot with a 45, How did you know that? I wondered if her sons wasn't here. But you know what? That fits the evidence, because there wasn't enough physical room for me to be shot with a 12-gauge shotgun in there. That's all there was to it. And but there is enough room to be shot with a 45 handgun loaded with the Glazer safety slug, and that way they could make it appear that I was shot with a shotgun. And you know what that does is add extra $500,000 to the life insurance payout. Plus, it stops them from getting the death penalty. Okay, I think I showed you all the rest of this here. So anyway, I just want to show you that, just this evidence here, this overwhelming, irrefutable, undeniable evidence, And as I ended that whole thing I'm just the next guy after the last guy. I moved here with hope and excitement, literally. I was 28-year company man, volunteered to lead United Way Drive, for Midland and Odessa, raise money for the needy, never had a felony. I'm a pretty good citizen, and they just tried to murder me me and take my stuff. That's what happened. But I was just the next guy after the last guy. The last owner died right before I bought this house. He was telling his friends people were breaking this house before he died. Lots of evidence on Mike Lawhon that I believe he was murdered here and taken to Fort Worth. And then I had an Aaron Peckholifer ask me if I knew the names of the 4 people that had been murdered, died in my house. What is going on here is absolute 100% lawlessness. I mean, it is. It's an embarrassment for the state of Texas. It's an embarrassment for our good police officers that don't sneak into homes, that don't lie on police reports, and don't tamper with evidence. I mean, we need the truth to come out, and this has to be stopped. We need to make an example of these police officers that are doing this to innocent crime victims. Buddy Webb, Midland, Texas.